We're in Moody, Alabama, which is just east of the city of Birmingham, and in this cul-de-sac, major devastation. This house, that's what was the second floor of the house. The wind picked it up and slammed it down. The house next door, you can see through the windows now, there's no roof, the second story missing, and then another house just 2 doors down where the trailer next door is fine, but the whole second floor is now gone. The roar of chainsaws fills the air now. Tree after tree came down in the high winds. Neighbors are helping neighbors, including Southeast Michigan natives Sherry and Terry Butts.
We've been through severe weather, but nothing like this, nothing compared to this. It's just, the devastation is so widespread and so extreme.
Sherry was on her way to work Wednesday when severe weather hit.
I'm very afraid. I can't see the road. I'm just hearing slapping noises against the car. And I just made it back home, fortunately, called my son, who was still up in bed, and we all got to the basement.
With no power, generators hum constantly.
I came over with my son and some of the football players, and we found a house and said, "Do you want some help?" And they said, "Sure." And so the whole backyard was treed with trees in it, but now all the trees were down, and we just started cutting up trees and hauling them to the edge of the road.
Michael Barron is one of those football players lending a helping hand.
I guess to show our community that we love them and that we'll do anything to help, just to show our love and everything.
Does it make you feel good people are pitching in?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
The view from atop this hill shows nothing but blue tarps dotting the roofs of nearly every home in this neighborhood. So the recovery and cleanup process has begun here in Moody, Alabama. The next step, getting the power restored, but that could take till at least Monday, and some people won't have power for 9 more days. In Moody, Alabama, Kristin Emery, 13 ABC Action News. We're in an area of Birmingham, Alabama called Smithfield Estates, and there's not much left here. Can you believe the people who lived in this house made it out alive? They were home Wednesday evening when the huge tornado struck and it collapsed the house right down on top of them.
My husband, he wasn't taking it too serious until he looked out of our front door and saw the house diagonal from us being destroyed, and that's when he hollered, "It's here!" So we ran downstairs, got in the closet, and he made it on the couch. And as soon as he made it on the couch, and my daughter was screaming, I was screaming, and the floor caved in on us.
Felicia Weeks, her husband Renarda, daughter Raylan, and 3 other relatives were buried alive.
I called for my daughter, she would not talk, and right after that, I heard my husband hollering for all of us, and that's when I, hollered. So he tried to get us, he couldn't get us, and there were 2 gentlemen walking up the street, and he asked them to come and get us.
It took more than 30 minutes, but those men dug them out, all 6 alive. Then Felicia looked around. Theirs wasn't the only house destroyed. The whole neighborhood gone in a matter of minutes. Remarkably, no one on her street died, but the section of Birmingham called Pratt City had many fatalities. They're still sifting through the rubble. Today, Reverend Jesse Jackson toured the devastation. Tonight, the National Guard is enforcing a dusk till dawn curfew, and Felicia and her family are grateful to have survived.
I know my first thought was, thank you, Lord, but yeah, I got up and looked around, and it was devastating.
I have to tell you, my photojournalist Justin Billau and I have both covered hurricanes and tornadoes in the past. With hurricanes, often the water, the storm surge sweeps everything away. Here, the tornadoes have left the rubble, and the families like this one are digging through to find important papers. Felicia even found her purse, thankfully her ID. Reporting in Birmingham, Alabama, Kristin Emery, 13 ABC Action News. We are in Hoover, Alabama, which is just outside of Birmingham, and there's relief pouring in here from around the country, but also the folks here are helping their own. One example, a massive relief effort by Citadel Broadcasting. You see the cars here. They represent their 4 radio stations. They saw the need. They put out the call on the radio, and you won't believe how people responded. Car after car after car dropping off literally tons of relief supplies.
People wanted to do something. What they didn't have was a way to communicate. What they didn't have was a logistics operation.
Whaley helped put that into motion, and volunteers keep it running.
To know that we can do something to try to help out with so many people who have lost everything, it's just a great feeling to be out here. Wonderful to be able to help.
NASCAR pit crews have nothing on these guys. The cars pull up, they unload the goods into buggies, then take them on to the sorters, then into the tractor trailers, all within minutes. Neighbors here are not surprised by the turnout.
Knowing this community and the way that these people react in a situation like this, I fully expected it to be this many people.
One car after another, they just keep coming, and the volunteers have emptied buggy after buggy. Now they've packed 9 tractor trailers with relief supplies, and those are heading out to some of the most devastated areas, many of which are not getting very much attention. They're very small, but now help is on the way. In Hoover, Alabama, Kristin Emery, 13 ABC Action News. We're in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, off 15th Street, a main thoroughfare, and you can see businesses gone here. The tornado came from that direction, and you can see why power crews are working to get everything back in order. The devastation starts right here, a half-mile wide path of destruction. It goes all the way over to those apartment buildings and that hospital, which were left untouched.
This was a very nice neighborhood, very, very nice neighborhood. And we had, you know, all around us is the University Mall, CVS, the hospital is right over here. It survived.
So did Nan Davis. She's lived here with husband Larry for 38 years. Most of her neighbors now are University of Alabama co-eds.
My husband and I and our great niece and her 3-year-old boy, they were in the bathtub, and Larry and I were beside them, kneeling down, and we were praying, and we were safe.
3 of the 4 college students who lived in this house next door were killed.
We're happy we're alive. But I hadn't, when it hits me, I guess I'll cry and cry and cry and cry.
Hundreds of people are still missing. Crews mark each dwelling they search with the date and other information. The most important number is the one you see at the bottom. That 0 means that search and recovery crews did not find any fatalities in that house. And despite what is massive devastation, many of the houses that are left along this street have zeros on their doors. In Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Kristin Emery, 13 ABC Action News. We're in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, one of the largest urban areas that sustained major damage. Behind me, trees and homes clear cut by the winds. You can see what was a storage pod blown into this water. And here, what was probably a sign on top of a roof, a billboard just smashed to the ground. Nearby on Sunday morning, gospel music fills the air from an impromptu church service. Across Forest Lake, volunteers helped Judy Caldwell sort through what's left of her house and belongings.
Just to come and see this destruction, first of all, you think of your neighbors and your friends and your relatives. I've got relatives in the Downs, and they're fine. That's what I'm most grateful for.
That and all of the help she's getting from total strangers.
That's the Christian way to do things. And these people, I've tried to pay certain ones. They will not take any money. They are here just purely from the goodness of their hearts.
Judy's neighbors survived too. Sharon Roberts moved to Tuscaloosa from Columbus, Ohio in the 80s.
I looked out over the lake and saw the thing coming from that way with the huge tornado and all the debris flying around, and a small one going across this way. A white, and it was white. The other one was dark gray. And I said, Ray, we have to go to the basement now.
Had they stayed upstairs, they'd have been crushed when this tree smashed through the roof and the glass patio doors. Not only did Sharon survive a tornado in this house Wednesday night, but across town, her own home was destroyed, and her job as a caretaker for the woman who lived in this house, well, that now is gone too. But she says, fortunately, her life goes on. Reporting in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Kristin Emery, 13 ABC Action News. We are in Rainsville, Alabama, which is east of Huntsville. This was a Huddle House restaurant, and people were in here Wednesday night when the tornado hit. 25 people in this community died, including people here. And look over here, more restaurants and more buildings destroyed. This is kind of a remote town, but there are even more isolated burgs around here that hadn't seen help until today.
Need a tarp?
That's where Lawrence and Perlia Kennard of Toledo come in. They're Red Cross volunteers. Today they're in rural northeast Alabama.
We're here to serve, but yeah, so far we've been kind of held back a little bit, you know, but I'm sure it's going to pick up.
They're scouring the hills around Langston for anyone who needs help.
I do it because I feel that I am being of service. Anything to help.
Tim Treese appreciates it.
Our weather alert radio went off, and we got up and they was giving a tornado warning for us, so we live in this trailer and we thought we might ought to get out.
He rode out the tornado in his mom's house.
And that thing, it hit me, hit the door, and it knocked me through the house.
With rain on the way tonight, he's grateful for the tarps Lawrence and Perlia brought him.
You wouldn't think nobody from Ohio or like y'all would, you know, take enough time to come down here. But I guess that means something too, that folks care, you know. It sure does.
We haven't experienced exactly what they've experienced, but we kind of feel their pain, you know. So like I said, anything that we can do to kind of lessen it.
Lawrence and Perlia will be in Huntsville tomorrow delivering some hot meals to people that need help in the area. They say they don't know how long they'll be here, but they are glad they're here to help. In Rainsville, Alabama, Kristin Emery, 13 ABC Action News. Photojournalist Justin Billau and I left for Alabama Thursday night. We're in northern Alabama, where you can see some of the damage behind me. That's where we started our reports, and that's where we're ending them. And some of the devastation we've seen has been unbelievable, but so has been the outpouring of help. We saw lines for gas in southern Tennessee, where a policeman said he found debris from a Mississippi business in his yard. In Huntsville, we found Toledo natives Tim and Allison McCormick. They escaped damage but didn't have electricity. South of there in Cullman, major damage. A cell tower twisted, a gas station toppled, cars crushed, and a building's brick wall blown out. In Moody, just outside of Birmingham, trees fell everywhere, and neighbors helped clear them away.
I came over with my son and some of the football players, and we found a house and said, "You want some help?" And they said, "Sure." And so the whole backyard was treed with trees in it, but now all the trees were down, and we just started cutting up trees and hauling them to the edge of the road.
Tornadoes sheared off roofs, and the view from this hill was a sea of blue tarps. We heard about a relief drive on the radio, and we found it in Hoover, on the other side of the city.
People wanted to do something. What they didn't have was a way to communicate. What they didn't have was a logistics operation.
On the north side sits Pratt City, torn apart by the twisters. We found one family that had been buried alive.
I called for my daughter. She would not talk, and right after that, I heard my husband hollering for all of us. And that's when I, hollered. So he tried to get us. He couldn't get us. And there were two gentlemen walking up the street, and he asked them to come and get us.
Then south to Tuscaloosa, and devastation. Whole subdivisions ripped to pieces and lives torn apart.
We're happy we're alive. But I hadn't. When it hits me, I guess I'll cry and cry and cry and cry.
Total strangers helped homeowners pick through the rubble, trying to see if there's anything to salvage.
Need a tarp?
And Red Cross volunteers from Toledo traversed the hills of northeast Alabama, handing out tarps, food, and water.
You wouldn't think nobody from Ohio or like y'all would, take enough time to come down here. But I guess that means something too, that folks care, It sure does.
We haven't experienced exactly what they've experienced, but we kind of feel their pain, So, like I said, anything that we can do to kind of lessen it.
As we've traveled across the state of Alabama, we've seen damage as horrible as this, where people died, and we've also seen areas where people have not had power since last week. So they may not have lost their home, but they haven't had any electricity for nearly a week. Differing degrees of damage, but all over the state, the cleanup will be continuing for a long time. Reporting in Rainsville, Alabama, Kristin Emery, 13 ABC Action News.